wrong for being mad at my fiance for replacing my coffee with decaf? Okay, I know nothing about coffee, so I don't know if I'll be able to relate to this, but here we go. So I, 31 female, am currently 4 months pregnant with my fiance, 32 male. We've been together for 7 years and are planning to get married soon. We've been meaning to for years, but have never seen it as urgent until we both found out that I was pregnant recently. We're both over the moon and really excited. However, I haven't become overcome by mommy fever or anything. Now, I have been lucky enough to not have experienced any morning sickness or nausea or anything like that, or any extreme symptoms in my pregnancy. However, last week, I started getting absolutely killer headaches. I would describe it as if someone had taken an ice pack to my eyeball. I am someone who usually drinks 3 or 4 cups of coffee a day for context. I told my husband about these headaches and started to get really worried because I thought I was going to have the flu or maybe something worse, which could be bad for the baby, but he didn't say anything. After a week or so, the headaches pass, but I've noticed I'm a lot more tired than I used to be. I tell him this as well, and he still doesn't say anything. Well, this morning I found a pack of Taf coffee empty in the garbage, and suddenly it dawns on me what's been happening. I'm the only one of us who drinks coffee, and he's the one who's been doing the shopping the past 2 weeks. I confront him, and he admits that when he's ordered to do the weekly shopping, he's just been reusing my usual coffee tin and buying the decaf version of the same product because caffeine is bad for pregnancy, and he knows I don't have the will to do it on my own. But look, I've quit now and can spend the rest of my pregnancy without it. He said he didn't want to make me feel bad about my vice by confronting me and that it would be easier to quit if I wasn't doing it intentionally, so he did all 3 of us a massive favor. I tried to quit caffeine before as a detox a few years ago and only made it 2 days, he points out. I lost it and said he was a horrible person. Basically, I started packing my belongings and said that the way he acted is evidence that he actually not only completely lacks respect for me, but that he caused me immense stress, knew it, and still didn't own up to it until I had to confront him. He is refusing to apologize, so I'm staying out of friends until he does. However, he doesn't think he did anything wrong. He and his friends think I'm being the asshole because he was just doing what's best for his baby's health, and that I'm completely overreacting and that my reaction is just pregnancy hormones. I'm really upset and feel like I'm making a massive mistake. Okay, maybe I'm wrong, but it's just coffee.
My 23 male girlfriend, 26 female, got into a confrontation at Costco. I left the store to not escalate the situation. She's accusing me of running away when she needed me. 2 days ago, my girlfriend and I went to Costco. A guy blatantly cut in front of us in the checkout line that we had already been waiting for almost 20 minutes. My girlfriend spoke up and told him that we were already waiting and the end of the line was way back there. He said we didn't move our cart forward fast enough, and that meant we had left the door open for him to jump in. She said that was crap and to move his stuff. He had 2 huge carts literally filled to the brim. He said, "What are you going to do about it, bitch?" I didn't want to escalate the situation, so I basically just walked away and out of the store. I felt like it was so much better because you just don't know what people are going to do these days. I figured my girlfriend would leave as well, but I waited in the car for a good 30 minutes before I heard anything. Finally, she came out with all of our stuff. I asked her how it went. She said, paraphrasing here, "Not only are you a fucking coward, literally everyone in that line laughed at you about how you left me high and dry." I tried to explain to her about not wanting to escalate, and she said that no partner in the world, let alone woman, wants their partner to turn tail and run. I tried to explain to her again my thought process, and she said if I said one more word, she was going to break up with me. I dropped her off at her house with her stuff, and I haven't heard one word from her despite texting and calling her a few times. What is going on here? What can I do about this? How do I make her understand my point?
I feel like that was lame. I don't know how else to say that more eloquently. That was a lame move. That was whack. And gender roles aside, I just don't think that was cool. I'm picturing myself in that situation with like a girlfriend, and I would never just dip out after they called my friend, girlfriend, whoever they are, a bitch.
Is it normal that my boyfriend threatened to unalive me and himself if I try to leave him? Disclaimers are not my story time. I sent me on Instagram. My boyfriend and I have been together for 6 years. He's always been very judgmental of everything I do. The clothes I wear, if I wear makeup, if I don't wear makeup, if I'm friendly, if I'm too friendly. He just finds a way to make everything I do bad. He's always been very controlling and very jealous too. But in the past 3 years, things have gotten even worse. Exactly 3 years ago, he asked me to marry him, and I told him that I just didn't think we were ready. So basically, I said no. He took this as me saying that I didn't want to be with him, that I didn't love him, and that he wasn't good enough for me. Obviously, I don't think any of those things, but I said no because our relationship was not in a good place. I was always constantly scared of him and worried that he would get mad at me. I knew then that that was not a good situation to get married into. I can't imagine how much worse he would be if we actually got married and he felt like he owned me. After the proposal, he became more insecure and wanted to keep tabs on me all the time. Even if I'm going to my parents' house, he still calls me and checks on me if I'm still there. He's even called my mom to ask her where I am. Part 2 is up. Is it normal that my boyfriend threatened to unalive me and him if I ever tried to leave him? Disclaimer is not my story time, send me on Instagram. After the time where he called my mom and asked her where I was, my mom got really upset. She told him that he needed to give me space. And as you can imagine, him being already toxic, this made him extremely violent. By the way, at this point, we'd only been living together for 2 months. I came home to a broken TV. Our 75-inch plasma, he decided to throw on the floor. Then he told me that I needed to control my mother. And how dare she tell him how he needs to behave. Then he told me that he would never speak to my mother again. I mean, how does he think that this is going to make me any happier? I called my mom and told her that he had broken the TV and that he was extremely upset at her. My mom demanded that I leave him. But I know, it sounds so stupid. I still love him and I do feel bad for him. I know how much he depends on me emotionally. So when I got off the phone, I told him what my mom said. Then he flat out said, if you ever leave me, I will unalive you and then me. Then he punched a hole in a wall. So I went straight to my parents' house. Part 3 is up. Is it normal that my boyfriend threatened to unalive me and then himself if I ever left him? Disclaimer is not my story time, send me on Instagram. After I ran away to my parents' house, he sent me a message saying that he would give me some time. I thought this was a good sign. Maybe he was starting to understand what I needed. I stayed at my parents' house for a week, and that's when I started noticing that he was driving around my neighborhood. If I went to the supermarket, he was there. Eventually, I called him and we made up. He did try to work on his jealousy, which made a huge improvement in our relationship. The only problem is that anytime we would ever get into a fight and I would say that I needed space, he would come back to the same thing. Always say, I will unalive you and then me. He knows that by saying that I'm gonna instantly stop the fight, but I'm starting to think that he's not gonna do it. And I heard from a guy friend that his girlfriend says the same thing to him, so I'm just wondering if it's just him being dramatic. Because at this point, I'm only with him because of that. I feel bad for him. Part of me is still very attracted to him, but I know that he's just gonna continue getting worse. Is this normal or not? What should I do?
Am I wrong for adding my brother to his fiance? I, 24 male, have a younger brother, 22 male, who's in the closet. I knew he was gay since he was 15 years old, but I never told our parents anything about it because they're pretty homophobic and would probably end up disowning him. However, around 2 years ago, my brother brought this girl home and presented her as his girlfriend. Our parents were pleased with her, but I was confused and later on asked him why he's dating a girl if he's gay. He told me that he's planning to marry a girl for appearances and to have children in order to please our parents. I told him that's a terrible idea and he's just gonna make himself and the girl miserable for the rest of their lives. He then told me he doesn't plan to stay married to her for the rest of his life and just for a while until they have children. After that, he's gonna divorce her and share the custody of kids with her. What the that's I told him that's a very cruel plan and that he shouldn't let his parents' expectations dictate the way he lives his life. But he just ignored me and continued to date this girl. Fast forward to last week when I found out that my brother and his girlfriend got engaged and were planning to get married in next year's spring. I called my brother and told him again how cruel he was for leading on that girl and he should put himself in her shoes, but he again didn't listen to me. So I contacted his fiancée and convinced her to meet up with me in order to talk about my brother. I then told her all the truth, that my brother is only marrying her in order to have children and that he's going to divorce her as soon as he has them and he's actually into men. She absolutely lost it and told me that I just came up with lies about my brother in order to break them off because I was secretly in love with her. How can people be like, I wish I had that confidence for some of these people to think that many people are into you. Like, how can you be so cocky? Like, you're so full of yourself. After that, I just let her be and I thought my brother was going to rear me a new one after finding out what I told her. But yesterday my brother called me enraged and went off on me, telling me how I could out him to his fiancée like that and betray his trust. Apparently, after our talk, his fiancée did some digging on my brother and found out that he's been seeing another man behind her back. She immediately broke the engagement off after that and let my brother know that I was the reason she even suspected him in the first place. My brother told me that he's never going to trust me with anything ever again and then blocked my number. So, am I the asshole here? No, honestly, like, I get family is family, but that poor girl is going to get blindsided later on and it's going to suck and you were just being a good person. I think if you're family or not, you got to do what's right. Always.
Storytime about how my dad was on the news and now everybody knows my last name. So a little background information. This all happened whenever I was in 6th grade. This all happened on a Tuesday night. So I had school the next day. Well, my dad had went to work earlier in the day. Well, around 10 o'clock at night, we hadn't heard from my dad all day, which was super weird for him because he was always home around 10 o'clock. And even if he wasn't, he still would have kept in contact with us and let us know where he was at. So at this point, my family and I were really scared and we're thinking that something happened to him. I was calling and texting him. My mom was calling and texting him. My whole family was pretty much trying to get a hold of him. Like, we had called all the hospitals to see if he was there. We called police stations to see if he might have been in jail or if they had his last name in the system. So nobody had heard or seen from him. So we all went to sleep that night hoping that he would show up in the morning. So the next day after I got home from school, my mom came home from work and she had told me about this phone call that she got. Like for part 2. Part 2 of how my dad was on the news and now everybody knows my last name. So like I said, my mom had gotten home from work and she told me about this phone call that she got while she was at work. So apparently one of her coworkers called her and said, "Hey, I think I saw your husband on the news." So after that, she showed me the news article and I couldn't even believe what I was reading. So I guess my dad had been drinking and he went to an auto repair shop and stole a car because I guess the keys were left in the door of the car. And what makes this even worse, the car that he stole had 2 guns in the trunk. And they weren't 2 pistols, these were 2 big ass guns that were fucking loaded. Oh wait, I forgot something. So before this, he had been at the strip club and somehow he ended up in pink lingerie. Guys, I cannot make this shit up. So he was driving around and he decided to park right in the middle of an intersection and it was literally causing a whole fucking scene. There were people with their kids worried as hell. So after that, a few people called the cops, like for part 3. Part 2 about how my dad was on the news and now everybody knows my last name. So like I said, my dad parked in the middle of an intersection and people were calling the cops. So when the police arrived, my dad was half passed out in the car. This happened in like the middle of broad day, like there's traffic everywhere. So when they finally get up to the car, my dad is literally slumped in the driver's seat. There was a bottle of whiskey in the door and it was completely empty. When they went to arrest him, he started resisting. He was screaming a bunch of profanities at them and started kicking them, threatening them with guns, which made the situation worse because my dad had no clue that there were any guns in the back of the car. So that just made the police think that they were his. So they take my dad to jail and he has like 7 charges against him. But we were happy because we knew where he was. Well, the worst part is, so the next day when I went to school, people were coming up to me asking if that was my dad on the news. Some people were even making fun of me because of what he did. And that's really fucking embarrassing for a 12-year-old. But it's okay, Dad, I still love you.
My brother-in-law keeps trying to hook up with me. Should I tell my husband? My husband is a very, very jealous man. He can't stand it when I get hit on or even stared at. The few times that I've gotten hit on in front of him, he actually started a fight with the guy. So I basically live in fear of anybody hitting on me in front of him. He's also very jealous with our friends. I have a really big group of friends and a lot of them are males. He's outright told our male friends to not touch me or ever even hug me or kiss me when they see me. By the way, a lot of these guys are already married and in relationships. So the fact that my husband does that is just ridiculous. It's obviously humiliating to me. The only person my husband is not jealous of is his own brother. And at first I thought this was a good thing. His brother offered to move in with us while we were renovating our house. My husband and him basically work all day on the house. I get to work from home, so I'm usually in my own office. A few weeks ago, my brother-in-law started coming into my office. First, he would just talk to me, and then it turned into flirting. Then he started insinuating how good-looking I was, how lucky my husband is. Part 2 is up. My brother-in-law keeps trying to hook up with me. Should I tell my jealous husband? That's when he started coming into my office to flirt with me. He would compliment everything about me. He would tell me that I had a great body, that I had a beautiful face. I know that he could visibly see how uncomfortable it made me, but he kept going. Of course, it never occurred to me to tell my husband because of how violent he gets when he's jealous. And he knew that, which is why he kept pushing it. One day, my husband and him went to a local bar after finishing up work at home. When they came home, my husband was completely wasted. My brother-in-law put my husband in our bed and told me that I should get him some water. I went down to the kitchen to grab my husband a bottle of water, but my brother-in-law followed me into the kitchen, cornered me up against the fridge and tried to kiss me. By the way, I could smell the alcohol on him, so I knew he was drunk. I pushed him away and told him not to touch me. That's when he started apologizing. He said, "I thought you wanted it." As I started walking away, he grabbed my arm and kissed me. But the truth is, part of me liked it. Truthfully, I always found my brother-in-law very attractive. By the way, it's not like I just let him kiss me. I was trying to fight him off. When he let me go, I slapped him and I ran upstairs. Of course, I avoided him after that. A few days later, I was having dinner with my friends when my brother-in-law shows up at the restaurant and sits at a table right across from us. Proceeded to just stare at me the whole time. Finally got up to the bathroom and he followed me. That's when he grabbed me and kissed me again. Part 3 is up. My brother-in-law keeps trying to hook up with me. Should I tell my jealous husband? When I saw him at the restaurant, I got up to go to the bathroom. He followed me, grabbed me, and kissed me again. Part of me really liked it. The other part of me knew this was totally wrong. Told him to leave the restaurant and he did. When I got back home from the restaurant, my husband wasn't home. That's when my brother-in-law confesses that he thinks my husband is having an affair. And that's why he thinks that he and I should just do whatever we want because my husband is already cheating on me. Now here's the thing. I have caught my husband cheating on me twice in the past. He told me that he'd never do it again and I believed him. So we began kissing. But I came to my senses when I realized what this could mean. Now I just want to say, what I feel for my brother-in-law is passion. But what I feel for my husband is love and passion. My husband has always fulfilled me in every single possible way. And I'm not about to leave my husband or ruin what we have for his brother. But this has now been happening for months. Brother-in-law continues to get me alone and kiss me. To be honest, it's kind of fun. Part of me has come to accept that my husband might be cheating on me. I haven't found concrete proof, but I feel like I will soon. But part of me doesn't care. I'm super attracted to my husband, but I'm also attracted to his brother. But I love my husband. I don't know what to do. Help me. I hooked up with my dad's best friend and now I'm pregnant. Should I tell my dad? I met my dad's best friend when I was 15 years old. Growing up, he would come to my house every now and then. A few years ago, my dad became a really big fan of the gym. Him and his best friend started going and they actually got really fit. Around this time, I turned 21 years old and I would start going out with my friends a lot. My dad would always make an effort to pick me up after I would go party with my friends. So anytime I went to a club or a bar, my dad would pretty much go pick me up without fail. But sometimes he couldn't and he would send his best friend instead. A little backstory on my dad's best friend. After he and my dad got in shape, he turned into a fitness model. Models for clothing brands and a lot of sports gear. He actually never got married himself. Instead, he dates a lot of women. And before you all go crazy, most of them are his age. I'm sure you're all wondering he's 39 years old. So like I said, my dad would sometimes send him to pick me up from clubs and stuff. The first time he went to pick me up, I actually didn't even recognize him. He had just finished going on a date and he looked amazing. When I got in his Tesla with him, I just couldn't stop staring at him. He asked me what was wrong and I said, "Wow, you look so handsome." Then he laughed and said, "Oh, I clean up well." After that, he picked me up a few more times. On the 5th night that he picked me, I was totally wasted. When I got in his car, I was telling him that I really wanted to hook up with somebody. I grabbed his thigh and he told me that I needed to find somebody my own age. Part 2 is up. I hooked up with my dad's best friend and now I'm pregnant. Should I tell my dad? When I grabbed his thigh, he told me that I needed to look for somebody my own age. I started to laugh and asked why. That's when he said that he would never want to do anything to jeopardize his relationship with my dad and that I was way too young for him. I told him my dad had nothing to do with it and that we were both consenting adults. Then all he said was, "Nice try." Of course, I felt rejected, but I knew that he was attracted to me too. So I knew that all I had to do was wait. A few weeks later, my dad had a get together with some of his friends. And of course, his best friend was there too. And this time he looked so good. So I decided to make another move. While my dad was in the backyard with all his friends, I asked his best friend to come with me to the kitchen. As soon as we stepped into the kitchen, he grabbed my hand and told me that I needed to calm down. I told him there was nothing wrong with us liking each other. And then he kissed me. And oh my god, he's such a good kisser. But the kiss only lasted like 3 seconds. He went back outside and didn't talk to me for the rest of the night. I was hooked at that point. A few weeks later, I went out with some friends and told my dad that I needed him to pick me up. But of course, I knew my dad was on a business trip. So guess who he sends? His best friend. But when he came to pick me up, I decided to act like nothing had happened. When I got in the car, we didn't say a word to each other. He just started driving home. Once we were a block away from my house, he parked his car. Suddenly, he starts kissing me and it was so amazing. And we ended up hooking up in his car that night. Part 3 is up. I hooked up with my dad's best friend and now I'm pregnant. Should I tell my dad? After the night we hooked up in his car, we didn't speak for about 2 weeks. But of course I played it cool. I just pretended like I didn't care. My mom and dad's anniversary was a few days at this point, so my siblings and I decided to have a party for them. And of course we invited my dad's best friend, Purr. I knew I had to look absolutely drop dead gorgeous. I wore a beautiful lavender silk dress, which fit like a glove. The festivities were amazing and my parents had a great time. And the entire night my dad's best friend just kept staring at me. But like I said, I was playing hard to get. We had a live band and catering for the whole event, so everyone was out on the dance floor. Seeing as everyone was distracted, I decided to go to the kitchen because I knew that he would follow me. And he did. Once he came into the kitchen, he started kissing me. Then we went inside the pantry and hooked up again. Before we went back to the party, he told me he had really serious feelings for me. And I told him I did too. That's when he told me that we should be honest with my parents and tell them the truth. Because he really wanted a relationship with me. A few days later, we told my parents while at dinner. My dad absolutely lost it. I managed to calm him down and we all talked. Been a few weeks now and he's come to accept it a little more. But now I've missed my period. The test came out positive and I haven't told anybody. I'm so scared. What do I do? Storytime about how my boss severely bullied me because she was envious of me. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. I work at a really high-end nail salon. I'm talking about $200 to $300 per manicure and pedicure. So it's very high-end and our clientele is very rich. My goal has been to open my own nail salon, but it hasn't happened yet. Obviously, I don't have enough money to open it, so I needed to get a job. This new nail salon had opened up near my house. It was the prettiest thing I'd ever seen in my life, so I definitely wanted to get a job there. I went in for an interview with the owner of the nail salon. During the interview, she was really nice, but kind of gave off that queen bee vibe. Like, she was the popular girl and she didn't want anyone else to be popular or pretty. I got a call from her a week later and she asked me if I could do her nails to see how well I did. And when I did her nails, she was impressed. She said that I was really good and that I was hired immediately. I started working and within the first month, I had the biggest clientele list. A lot of clients were asking for me to do their nails. And when other clients heard the other clients ask for me, they also started asking for me. You know, word of mouth. I was extremely proud of myself. Not only was I making a lot of money, but I was actually building a clientele base that really loved my work. Don't get me wrong, the other girls at the salon were actually really good, and so was the owner. If we were really busy, sometimes the owner would pick up any walk-in clients. And one of the walk-in clients came in and asked specifically for me. The owner told her that I was busy and that she would do her nails. That's when the girl said that she would come back whenever I was available. My boss quickly snapped at the girl and told her that she was just as good as I was. The worst part was that she said it loud enough so that everyone in the salon could hear her. The client clearly felt uncomfortable but agreed to it anyway. Later that day on my break, I could hear my boss talking in the kitchen. I decided to wait outside and see what she was saying. Sure enough, she was talking about me and telling one of the other girls that I thought I was too pretty for this job and that I didn't have any experience. She also said that I probably just watched YouTube videos in order to learn. Number one, I have 10 years of experience. And number two, it doesn't matter if you watch YouTube videos as long as you're learning. This obviously hurt my feelings and I tried not to cry. Then I realized that she did it on purpose. She was speaking really loudly and she knew that I was about to go on break. That's when I realized that she was definitely trying to bully me. The following day, I get a phone call from her telling me that I should stay home. When I asked her why, she said that she hired a new girl. And she said, in fact, don't come at all this week. And she basically hung up on me. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how my boss bullied me because she was extremely envious of me. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I sent me on Instagram. After she told me not to come into work for an entire week because she was hiring a new girl, I decided to go in the following day and just make sure that I still had my job. I walked in and said hi to everyone. This is when, once again, I catch her talking trash about me with the new girl. She told the new girl that I thought I was better than everyone and that she should definitely stay away from me. But again, I didn't say anything just because I didn't want to have any confrontations with my boss. I waited a few seconds, knocked on the door, and entered. I asked her if I could speak to her and she said yes. I told her I couldn't stay off working for a full week. This is when she said, okay, fine, you can come in tomorrow. But you're gonna have to train the new girl because she has zero experience. So essentially, I wasn't gonna be doing anyone's nails, I was gonna be training the new girl. This made me upset, but I knew that I needed to play my cards right. So I said yes with a smile on my face. I trained the new girl for the entire week and she actually turned out to be pretty good at nails. The following week, she was even taking on clients for gel manicures. Now, I thought this was gonna make my boss upset, but it actually made her really happy. Finally, I see that everyone's starting to pack up their stuff to leave early. I asked one of the girls what was happening and she said that everyone was going to dinner together. I said, oh, okay. And she said, weren't you told? No, I was not told. I knew this was another intimidation/bullying tactic from my boss. My boss had even invited the new girl and not me. They all left, went to dinner, and my boss pretended not to even see me when she was leaving. The following day, I come into work and one of my clients is already waiting for me. We sit down at the table and my client begins to tell me that my boss was talking trash about me before I came in and that she even did it in front of the clients. She informed me that my boss was talking trash about my body, my hair, and my clothes, and that I was basically a JLo knockoff. I quit on the spot and took all my clients with me, over 22 women. I opened my own salon 2 months later. I'm now her competition. She sent me a message apologizing, but I haven't responded. What should I say?
Story time about how my mom planned to kill me. Yes, I said my mother. So a little background information, I was 16 years old and I was in 11th grade. Now it's not like my mom hated me my whole life, because there was a time whenever she was super happy and she did really love me. Well, it all started whenever my dad had left her. She went into this deep depression. She quit her job. She wouldn't get out of bed in the morning. She stopped cooking, stopped cleaning, and she always blamed me because she thought it was my fault that our dad left. When in reality, my dad still texts me all the time asking how I'm doing. All of a sudden, a flip switch, my mom started cooking again, going to work. I never really ate her food because it low-key looked weird. But one day I came home from school and saw her putting rat poison in my food. And I wish I was kidding. But she's fucking crazy. So I said hi, but she didn't answer me. So I tapped her on the shoulder. She turned around and put a knife up to my neck. I ran out the door, called the police. They arrested her, and now I am happily living with my father and my non-crazy
A few years ago, I lost control of my car while driving down a super steep, super icy hill, and at the bottom of the hill, there were all these cars piled up that had crashed into each other because they had also lost control. And I thought, I don't want to hit the people, so I'm going to drive into that person's yard and hit their tree. But the one time in my life that I tried to jump a curb on purpose, my car was like, nah. And I bounced off the curb, spun around on the ice, and then slammed back into the curb, facing uphill on the wrong side of the road. I was like, I'm alive! And then I saw a huge truck, you know, the kind with the love handles on the side. He was barreling down the hill, also out of control, straight towards me. And I was like, oh no, I'm dead. I remember specifically thinking, I didn't think I'd go out this way. But the truck had the same thought process I did, and he jumped the curb, slammed into the tree. And ever since that day, I have been scared of driving in the snow. My whole family makes fun of me for it. They were making fun of me for it last winter. We were all having dinner together, except for my youngest brother who was out snowboarding. And he called us from the ski resort place, and he said, I have been injured, and I want Katie to come pick me up. And of course, my mother was like, help is on the way, dear. And he said, no, I want Katie to come pick me up. I said, oh, Mom, he probably just doesn't want to take you away from the family on Christmas. But on the inside, I was like, ha-ha, losers. Who did he pick? Me. Not you, not Hermione, me. Who's the favorite sister? I am. Suck it. I said, I'm coming to get ya. And then I continued eating my dinner because in my defense, the damage was already done and I was eating wings. But my family was like, no, Kate, you have to go now. So I abandoned my wings to the vultures that are my family, hopped in my car, drove 2 miles an hour through a snowstorm to rescue baby brother. My big brother was in the car with me, and he kept saying, can't you drive faster? And I was like, I don't want to die. There were cars and ditches leading all the way up to the ski resort. I kept having to roll down my window and say, listen, I'm just here to pick up a body. I'm not going to ski. We get baby brother, we take him to the ER, and I said, I'm really flattered that you picked me out of the whole family to come pick you up. And he said, oh, I just know you drive the slowest in the snow, and you'd be the least likely to panic and die coming to pick me up. And that made me really happy too, because it was the first time in my life anybody had ever nominated me least likely to panic. I'm always panicking. And I said, you know what? After all this, I'm going to get you ice cream. But baby brother is 6'5" and built like a lumberjack. I think he's 6'5". He always says he's shorter than he is because he's a few centimeters shy of 6'5". And he's like, I don't want to be that guy who lies about his height. And I try to explain to him that after you clear 6'3", everyone's too scared to call you on your height. This Thor-looking mother trucker looked at me and said, I don't really do ice cream. And I was like, and he said, I mean, yes, could you please buy me some ice cream to make me feel better? And I said, yeah.
Am I the asshole for complimenting a cashier? My sister thinks I'm the asshole, but I'm confused on how I could be. I was buying a bagel on Thursday and noticed the cashier was rather pretty. She had tattoos, so she was probably at least 18, and she looked around 19 or 20. I completed my order and said, "You know you're gorgeous, right?" To my shock, she gave me a blank stare and looked kind of disgusted. I tried to make conversation with her as I own boast and asked her if she's ever been on one. She said, "You're done with your order, right? I think we're done here." She didn't even say thank you and gave me a nasty look. I don't think my compliment was crude or nasty, and her reaction was shocking. My sister said it was weird to give that kind of compliment considering I'm 58, but I wasn't flirting with her. Am I the asshole for siding with my parents when they told my sister and her fiancé to sleep separately? I'm 19 female and I live with my parents, 52 female and 54 male. I have an older sister, 25 female, who's engaged to her boyfriend of 6 years. Her fiancé and her have been living together for 3 years and they got engaged this year. She also announced to us a while back that they're expecting a baby. In our house, there's a strict rule about unmarried couples not sleeping together, and my sister knows that. She's left the house for 3 years since she's moved in with her fiancé, and she started visiting us in the holidays. For the past 3 years, the rule was that they'll sleep in different rooms since they're not official. She was never fond of the rule and always tried to have her way. Am I the asshole for siding with my parents when they told my sister and her fiancé to sleep separately? This year, my sister threw a fit because my parents wouldn't let her sleep on the same bed as her fiancé. Despite the two of them living together for so many years and despite being engaged and expecting a baby. They got in a huge fight on Christmas Eve. I sided with my parents saying it's their house and it's their rules, and if she doesn't like it, she can never visit again. Also that she has to respect the host and most importantly, the people that raised her. She called me an asshole and said that I'm still too young to understand why my parents are being disrespectful. I don't think I'm the asshole because no matter how absurd a rule sounds, if you visit someone, you do as they say, period. Am I the asshole for leaving my son outside on Christmas Eve night? I have 4 children and I'm pretty easygoing. It's simple, be respectful, do your chores, and for the 2 teenagers, be back before 10 p.m. Well, my 16-year-old son came home at 11 last night when the house was already locked up after missing about 10 calls from me. He knocked for me to let him in, but instead I called him and told him he could sleep in the treehouse. He was apparently on a date with someone and didn't realize his phone was set an hour behind. To me, that's all excuses, so I told him he had the rest of the night in the cubby to reset his time and we'd see him in the morning. At 6, I let him in and he came in, went to bed, and slept until lunchtime, holding his siblings up from opening gifts. My husband saying I overreacted.
This love is ill. I wish that it was different. Don't know what it is that made us so indifferent.
Am I the asshole for uninviting my boyfriend to Christmas? I, 39 female, have been dating my boyfriend, 51 male, for about 2 years now. We live separately but see each other almost every day. I have 2 daughters, ages 18 and 13, and my boyfriend doesn't have any kids. He had a marriage and a long-term relationship before me, both with women who had kids, and he helped raise them. He's been lately pushing for the relationship to progress, so I bought him a stocking and an ornament to hang at my house. We've also discussed cohabitation. Well, last night we were together and he said something about wanting to watch the football game on Christmas. Fine, not a problem. Then he added in about how children are to be seen, not heard during this time. Not funny.